Good morning, everyone. Grace and peace. Welcome to Find the Intersection. My name is Paul Dezay. Today we're going to be talking about two passages. Yesterday's Bible reading, Luke 16, 1 to 13, and today's Bible reading, 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 to 7. So we're going to talk about both those passages. So let's go ahead and jump into yesterday's passage, Luke 16, 1 to 13, really challenging passage about the parable of the dishonest manager, right? Parable of the dishonest manager, where Jesus seems to be giving props to a guy who cheated people out of money, right? So be shrewd like that. But I think the important thing as we take a look at this passage in Luke 16 is to take a look at the last few verses, and I think that provides context. Specifically the last verse, you cannot serve God and wealth. And I think that really sets this up. Money has the temptation of being a god. In fact, if you look at older translations, it'll actually have the word mammon instead of money or wealth. And in that world, mammon was a god, the god of money or the god of wealth. And so when Jesus is referring to this, and Paul talks about it quite a bit, is that money has the temptation of being a god in our lives. We can worship money, we can worship wealth, and that causes us, or the temptation, to do dishonest things. And so what we see in this passage is we had somebody who worshiped wealth, and that's the manager, right? The dishonest manager. And so what happens in this parable is very interesting. This guy gives back some of the money that the owner is owed by these different tenants. So instead of somebody owing 100 of this, he says, well, cross that out and you now own 50. And so the owner gives him props and says, hey, good job. In all appearances, it looks like the manager is just continuing to be crooked. And why is the owner giving, good job, man, giving away some of his stuff? Now, the way I see it is the manager is not giving away the owner stuff. He's giving away his commission. And so what he's doing, the manager, is saying relationships are more important than the commission that is owed to me. Because after this job is over, what stands is relationships. Money doesn't matter in comparison to relationships. The other kind of way you could look at this is the Old Testament has a lot of laws against interest. And so maybe the manager is striking the extra interest that the owner is charging the people, and so that he's building relationships with these people. It's a very difficult passage. No one knows for sure, but Jesus seems to be giving props to the guy for his shrewdness. For me, I step back and look at it and I say, this is about money and worship of money or worship of Jesus. And so we really have to make sure that our heart is in the right place and recognize our temptation to worship money, to worship stuff. Instead, we should be putting relationships first. All right, that's yesterday's passage. Today's passage is 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 to 7. A few things stood out to me as I looked at this. The first thing is that first verse there, chapter 2, verse 1. It says, first of all, then I urge you, supplications, prayer, and intercessions and thanksgiving made for everyone. And so we are called to pray for everyone. Who does that include? It includes everyone, right? So in our prayer life, we're not supposed to have certain people that we withhold prayer from. We're supposed to be praying for everyone. In fact, I think it's when you pray for someone, it's very difficult to hate that person, right? So when we're praying for everyone, we're praying for our enemies, we're praying for people that are different than us, it makes it easier for us to love that person. The second thing I notice in this passage is that we're called to pray for kings and for leaders, for people in the government, so that we can have peace, right? So verse number 2, for kings and for all who are at high positions, so that we may live a quiet and peaceful life in all godliness and dignity. So we pray for our leaders so that we can live in peace. And it's in the peace, it's in the harmony, it's in the shalom of God that the gospel spreads, right? So when things are peaceful in the countries that we live in, it's easier to spread the gospel. So we are to live at peace. We pray for our leaders, even if we disagree with them, and we pray for peace in our land so that the gospel can spread. And so that all people can be saved. And so that we see that it's God's will for all to be saved. Of course, free will allows us to make that choice or not to be a part of what God's kingdom, to be a part of what God's doing in the world. But as we pray, we're then able to love the people that we pray for, and the gospel extends much further in that sense of peace than in the sense of friction. Anyway, that's what I got for these two passages. What did you get? If you share in the comments what you got out of Luke 16, I'd love if you had some insight to help this passage so difficult. And also for 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 to 7, share your thoughts in the comments. And yeah, we'll be back tomorrow and we'll continue our journey in Jeremiah. Grace and peace, everyone. Have a great day.